Oh my gosh. I know. I'm like 2 minutes late. Sorry. It's not for lack of trying. I know I need to get a better way to do webinars. However, um, the alternatives are kind of expensive. So I think I'll just keep with this one until I've made every single possible mistake there is, and eventually I'll run out of them. So anyway, it's good to see you guys. Let's check in the chat and see who here. Hey guys, say hello. If you, oh, hello. That was a little musical interlude. If you signed in, I see Spoken Images is here. Hi. If you signed in as anonymous, go ahead and just say hi and tell me what your name is. If you haven't signed into the chat yet, please do, and just put a name in there. It doesn't even have to be your real name, just a name so I can say hi and give you a shout out. We are here to talk about branding. Generally, I am not a branding strategist by any stretch, but I know some about it. And I certainly know some about it when it comes to the internet and your website and the consistencies that you have to have across all your social media, your website, your print materials, and everything else that you do. And it's not just about the logo, which is what we're going to talk about. I'm sorry, my bird's going crazy. It's way more than that. The logo is a piece of your branding, but it's not the branding element itself. And in fact, you should figure out your branding before you get your logo. So that's what we're going to talk about, a little bit of like what comes first, and hopefully give you guys some activities, some to-do things that are going to be useful for you to get thinking about your brand. You are your brand, of course, as a voiceover. So, we just I'll try to direct it more down to a solopreneur as opposed to, a corporation or business, which is usually what we think of. Can you guys hear me okay? Those of you who've signed in, can you hear me and see me okay? I see there's a little bit of a delay in my speaking, and so I just wanted to make sure, just give me a shout out, say hey, or you can hear me in the chat, just so I know to keep going. Otherwise, I'm going to feel alone again, like last week or last time, 2 weeks ago. So let me know. Just give me a chat. Just give me a shout out. And in the meanwhile, I'm not here. I'm not seeing anything. I'm going to type something in the chat just to make sure. There we go. Fine on this end. Thank you, Spoken Images. I just want to make sure, because last time, we had this whole thing and I ended up recording it. By the way, any of you who did come the last time to learn about players, was it players? Now I can't even remember what I talked about. Anyways, anything that I do here does go automatically to YouTube, and I did end up re-recording that one, and it's on YouTube now. So if you've ever missed any of my webinars, go ahead and go there and check them out. All right. Okay, I think I will just go ahead and get started and share my PowerPoint with you. We're doing PowerPoint today. Sometimes I demo stuff, and sometimes I just do PowerPoints and talk to you about things. But this will be a good one for you. You might want to take some notes on this one. Of course, like I said, this is going to be available on YouTube, but I think writing down some notes on this one so you can walk away from your computer to take some action is a good thing for you. So obviously today, are you branded? Let's talk about web presence. They almost don't seem to go together, but they really do. We're going to talk about what branding is and what it isn't. And hopefully get you to figure out who you are, And, who you are as a person, yes. Who you are as a voiceover, yes. Who you are as a business, yes. All of that. Know who your clients are. Some of this stuff I've talked about in the About presentation, the About You page, but we're going to reiterate because this has to be it's a concept that goes through your entire business, including when you're first figuring out your brand and who you are. So you also need to know who your clients are and how you're going to be connecting to them. And then considerations for your branding, things you need to think about and address, and then style guides. We'll talk about what that is. So what branding is more than just a logo, a product, a service, a name, a website. Okay, so a lot of people think, and I'm going to mention this later, but a lot of people think when they get a logo, they have a brand. And in a sense, you have a brand, but you have not been branded. Branding is more about evoking feelings. It's the perception people have about you and your service. So it's not just the logo. You can see how the logo would come out as a result of how you want to be perceived, who you are and how you want to be perceived, and what emotion, I mean, these are simple faces, but seriously, what do you want people to feel when they think of your business, when they see your branding? It's going to kick in memory for them. Like we know a lot of brands, like when I think Dunkin' Donuts, or if I see even the Dunkin' Donut colors, because I know what those are because they've been around for so long. They've consistently shown them, I want a donut and coffee. And it gives me a happy, yummy feel. So that's the kind of stuff we're getting. It's a little more the intangibles. You're going to do tangible things as a result of coming up with this intangible concept. Branding defines you, it describes you, and it is what sets you apart. Make that a note. Branding defines you as a person, but you as a business, because you're branding yourself, defines who you are. It describes who you are, and it sets you apart from everyone else. So when we talk about brand, let's go back to the word brand before we say branding. Think of the branding irons when, with cattle. And they still do this, I think, maybe. Ranchers would brand their cattle with an iron, right? They'd actually make a mark, and it would be their own mark. It would be their own unique mark on the cattle. And if anyone saw that steer or cow, I guess, people would know. They'd recognize that brand, and they'd be like, that belongs to that guy over there, and they wouldn't touch him. But today, non-ranchers, we think brand, we think Coca-Cola, we think Johnson & Johnson, we think names like that, like Dunkin' Donuts. Those are brands, they're brand names. In and of themselves, not branding, but it's a brand. Like you go to the store and you're like, well, what brand of tissue do you like? So that's what I'm talking about here when I talk about a brand. You go buy the Kleenex brand, even though now we call most tissue Kleenex. Isn't that crazy? Branding is more than just the product itself. It's used to create a desired perception of your business and service. So it is a proactive step that you take, that you recognize, I should say, first, and then that you take and create this mood and feel that you want to have, this perception that you want to have of your business. All of that feeling and thoughts and descriptions go into the logo, go into your colors, go into the way you present yourself. Even things like maybe the way you answer your phone, it can really expand out. This guy, David Ogilvy, is known as the father of advertising. And he was, I don't know, what's that show? I meant to look it up. That I never watched it. That show about advertising that was from about the 60s. You probably all know what I'm talking about. But he was kind of from that era, and I don't know if that show was like particularly about him, but that was him. So he's known as the father of advertising. And he says, this is pretty wise. He says, I don't know the rules of grammar. If you're trying to persuade people to do something or buy something, it seems to me you should speak their language. You should speak their language. So this is, I talk about getting to know your client. Who is your ideal client and what do they speak? Everybody has a language. We'll get more into depth on that one. All right, what branding isn't? Many think when they get a logo that they have a brand. I've seen this a lot, actually. It's, I guess, at its most basic, if that's all you do, it becomes your brand. It is your branding. But it's really, it's putting a perception out there. It's giving people a feel. It may not be the one you have proactively chosen. You might just like the look because it's got maybe a microphone, your name and a microphone and some color or something, and it looks maybe a little different from everyone else's microphone. But really, logos should come as a result of your branding and not the other way around. So define your branding before you go to your graphic artist. And I'm going to walk you through some steps to get your mind around it. Read up on it. If you don't have the money, read up on it and learn about it, and do things like coming to this webinar and get yourself wise about what branding is if you have to do it yourself. But really the best idea would be to work with a branding professional, because it's what they do. It's all they think about. And I'm telling you, they think about stuff that you would not think about. So getting with a branding professional is not always a super oh, Mad Men. Finally came to me. Mad Men was the show I was thinking of. See, if you stop thinking about it, you'll get it. So consider hiring a branding professional, at least talking with them, getting a consultation. It would be worth your money, definitely. So we know that branding isn't any one thing, but it is the compilation of everything to elicit positive emotions and memory, right? When I was talking about Dunkin' Donuts and I see their colors or I see their little logo, I remember who they are. I know exactly who they are, and I've used them, and I want to go back for more. And I have good, happy feelings, at least for the most part, because it tastes really yummy. Then maybe I don't have such good feelings later when I realize what I've done. But you know what I'm saying? It is the proactive actions that you take to generate the positive emotion and memory that you want people to have about you. So who are you? You have to know who you are before you can send it out to the world. Mission, vision, values. Anybody who's worked in the corporate world knows about this stuff. Mission statement, vision, the values. When I worked at Bell Labs, we had this stuff and it never mattered to me because it wasn't my mission, vision, values. I was supposed to adapt it or adopt it because I worked for the company, but I didn't really care because I was, low on the totem pole. I just did my job. But for you, you really need to think about this. I have a mission statement and a vision statement and a value statement. And I work with contractors, but I am my own, I don't have any actual employees, but I still have to know what my mission is. I have to know what my vision is. How am I going to, when I'm doing my mission, what do I envision happening? How do I envision that happening? Where do I see myself? And then values. What are your values? Write them down. Think about it. Do not ever throw your values aside. Do not ever deny your values or go against them. Okay. And this is maybe more of a personal thing, and it should be. Don't cross the line with your values. For anything else that you do, your values are who you are, and they are not worth throwing away for money. So keep that in mind. But your values as a person, first off. and then values as a business, which stems out of your personal values. And I'll tell you, there are people who do this all for just their life. They'll write a mission statement for their life, vision and values. They'll come up with all of that just for their life before they even think about, well, what is my business? And that's how some people come up with a career choice. What is my mission in life? What are my values? That kind of thing. But we're assuming you already decided your voiceover. So write down your name equals. Here I have Kathy Cervatka, and then equals fill in the blank with as many words as you can think of. This is your first little activity, not to do now, but to do later. Brainstorming thing. Just write down Kathy or Joe Schmo equals, meaning I am this, and this. Just brainstorming. When you brainstorm, you don't edit, you don't stop. You might put down crazy stuff. Whatever pops in your head, you put down, write it down. If you have a whiteboard, just go crazy, write it down, or else type it. Just keep typing away until you really just are spent on all the words. And then narrow it down to a list that most accurately describes you. You may want to pull some of the crazy ones out, or maybe keep some of the crazy ones in because they really are accurate. But some words you look at and go, yeah, sometimes that's me. It's not really important. And you toss that aside and just narrow it down. I don't know. Narrow it down to what? I don't know. Whatever. Just weed out the ones that really don't fit you. David Ogilvy, again, the best ideas come as jokes. Make your thinking as funny as possible. So I'm thinking, as you're coming up with who you are, and anytime you're doing brainstorming, there's always going to be something a little wacky that comes out of that if you're truly doing it right. Maybe that wacky thing is your hook. Maybe something that comes out of your brainstorming that seems a little goofy or odd is just what you are, is just what you need. Yeah, so brainstorming, no editing, just write. And then which words, when you get through that, which words or phrases elicit the most passion from you? You're going to see it. You're going to look at those words and go, which ones jump out at you? Even if they're the goofy ones, are they really, really you? Bring them in there. But whatever elicits the most passion from you and makes you feel most true to yourself, those are the ones you want to keep on your list. And when you feel passionate, when you feel like you're all in alignment, because every one of these steps you're doing is keeping you in alignment with yourself, with the true person that you are, you'll be passionate, and being passionate is contagious. People love passionate people. I mean, I hate to bring his name up, but Trump, I almost said Ted Trump, that would be combining them. Donald Trump, for love him or hate him, and people do. He's got a following. And we could debate why that is, but let's face it, that man does have a passion. So does Bernie Sanders, for that matter. I see those two as having the most passionate presence, and people like that. They follow that. They listen to that. So I'm not saying go off and, start stumping for your business, but, passion is contagious. Just an example. All right. After that, I'll have some coffee. I was a little off the path. All right. Yummy coffee. It's not Dunkin' Donuts, but it's really good. My own mix. All right. Ask your coach, while you're doing this research about yourself, ask your coach, your agent, your friends, your family, how they perceive you. People you trust. Make this people you trust. Do this step. Don't just assume that you know what they think of you. Find out what they actually say and be open. Ask them for honesty. So make sure you get people who are safe and who will be honest with you, how they perceive you, because you don't necessarily want all just the positive, fun, fluffy stuff. You want the reality. And, they're going to tell you good things that you knew, They may say some things that you didn't know. They may say some things that don't feel so good. What happens then? Thank them. Thank them for saying it, because if you picked a safe person, they're not saying it to hurt you. They're saying it because it's what they see, and you asked them. So if they perceive any negative things, if you hear a negative thing, it's very difficult. You want to figure out, is that something you can change or something you even want to change? I mean, I'll tell you guys, here's a little about me. When I was just becoming an adult, I came out into the world a big hot mess. I came out of a very dysfunctional family, um, abusive in a lot of ways, and alcoholism and all that kind of stuff. I came out with a lot of stuff. And if I couldn't even imagine asking this question of anyone, because I would be too scared of what I would hear. And if anybody told me something negative about myself, it would sting to the core. And I just couldn't even bring myself to hear it for two reasons. One, I kind of know it's true. And two, it's embarrassing that anyone else knows it. So I do realize that asking people to tell them how they perceive you and to be brutally honest is putting yourself out there. Um, but like what I did, is it something you can change? I had a lot of things that I wanted to change about myself. And so when I did get some of this feedback along in my life, hard as it was, and I worked on changing it, change the things you can. Now, at this point in my life, I've done a lot of changing, but some things have persisted. So at this point, maybe I just accept them as my reality and deal with it. So what you have to think is, the things that people have perceived, fine, the good things are fine. And if you hear the repeat words from people, some people saying the same things over and over, those are the things you want to listen to. If you hear a couple of owies, think about, is it something I can change? Do I even want to change it? Maybe I like that about myself. I mean, let's think of Don Rickles. I always want to screw his name. Don Rickles. For those of you who are old enough, he is still alive though. He made his living insulting people. I mean, he did it in a good way, but he turned something that was normally considered not good into something that was his hook. So just because something is out there that people perceive as negative, it could be something that works in your favor. Or you just say, you know what? I don't think that part of me is going to change. I really don't. Or I'm just going to kind of make it work. I'm just going to work with it. So just think about it. Know your customers. Know who your clients are. I talked about this in the About page video. Know your customers well. Make appointments to have conversations with them. Yes. Make actual appointments, even if it's just over the phone. Set it up, schedule it, and have a conversation with them. You would be surprised how many people are willing to have a conversation, to chat with you. So, hey, you guys, I'm going to check in the chat because I just noticed one of the lights is out. Are you still there? Can somebody type in the chat to let me know you're still there and everything's going okay? I just noticed one of the lights is out in on my cable modem. Somebody say hi, please. Say hi. Hello. Just type, hey. Hey. I will keep going on. Thank you. Oh, you had to reconnect. But you can hear me now. Can you hear me now? We're going to talk about taglines in a minute. Can you hear me now? What the heck? It's always something, isn't it? And you guys, I paid, okay, after our last escapade, great. Thank you, Anon 3320. After my last escapade, I paid to increase my internet speed Well, I think I had just done it, and then I removed a nasty program that was screwing me up. I'm just gonna keep going and assume that everyone's there. Get back to my screen here. Okay. I'll just keep a moving. I'm sorry if something happened. Not sure what's going on there. All right. So make an appointment with your customers and talk to them. Ask them about them. It's all about them. Bring a list of questions. Like, what does your average day look like? What do you like most and least about your work? Who are your customers? What are your pain points? Their pain points might not have anything specifically to do with voiceover, and how you serve them, but it's important to know what they are. What do they want from a voiceover? But you can ask some voiceover questions, but it's really about finding out their language, what they have to deal with, because your clients, say you're an audiobook person, and so you're doing work for somebody who publishes, I'm doing air quotes, who publishes audiobooks. Um, that business is different from your business. They go on once you do your recording, they go on, they take that recording and they turn it into an actual pulled together audiobook, and they market that book and they sell that book and they get reviews about that book, and they have a lot of things that they go on from after you're done that they have to deal with. So it's important to know what those things are and to learn their language. I'm sure they have a language, just like voiceovers have a language they use, and even voiceovers that do audiobooks have a language a little bit separate. That the people you're working for have their own language as well. So know who your clients are, personify your ideal customer based on all the information you gather. Speak directly to that person. I mentioned this before. As voiceovers, we do this, right? You're always speaking to just one person. Same thing when you are coming up with your branding. We're pulling this back. This is about branding. All this stuff about you and everything I've said to this point is about coming up with your brand, who you are, how you are perceived, how you want to be perceived. So when you gather all this information and you're working on your branding, you got to speak directly to that person. You're going to come up with your branding for that person, that personified ideal customer. And I'll tell you, if you try to speak to everyone, you will speak to no one. And that sounds like some cutesy little phrase, but it's really true, because you're not going to resonate with anyone. You're just going to be very vague and general. If you speak directly to someone with your branding, and this gets into niching. And I know a lot of voiceovers don't want to niche until they're, well established. By the way, niching doesn't mean you turn down jobs that don't fit in your niche. It just means that the niche is what you focus on and you really spend your time learning about it. But, you really do have to hone in that personification of your ideal client and speak to that one person all the while you're thinking about your branding and how you're getting your message out. I already talked about this. Interview yourself, interview people who know you, and interview your ideal clients. All of this to come up with your branding. Now we get to logo. Logo's part of this. This comes out of that. Designed to elicit everything you've just discovered about yourself, your clients, and the way you want to be perceived. Now the logo comes. Now what do you want it to look like? What do you want it to say? What is it communicating? Because it's not just a pretty decoration. It's supposed to communicate something. Choose your colors that fit all of that. And I did a talk on that too. Make sure you love them. They have to be colors you feel passionate about. They have to make sense with everything. And you know what? They will. If you've done everything to this point that I suggested, colors are just going to come out of who you are and everything you want to pull together. So that'll just work out. Here's something people don't think about. Have a few different versions of your logo. You want a vertical version and a horizontal version. Reason being, especially on websites, I'm talking as a web person now, the vertical logo is very difficult to deal with. on a website because the way today's websites are, there's just a small, short, wide area at the top of your web page for your logo. And if your logo is tall, it's got to get pretty scrunched down to fit in that logo area. If you have a horizontal or wider logo, that's going to be able to be bigger, hence going to have more space. So you really want to try and have both if you can, for different things. The vertical may come more in handy for advertisements, brochures, maybe even your letterhead, depending. So I would get one of each. I would get a full color logo based on the colors you choose. And then I would get a black and white, and I said white and black here, which is really just inverted. So black and white, and then the inversion of that, because on the web, not so much in print, but on the web, on the internet, you can do a solid color with, or solid black with a white text in it or white imagery within the color background. You can also do this for your color. In fact, I'm going to show you a logo that is inverted where it's white text on their corporate color background. So you want to get this variety of logo options, and then that's it. Don't step out of it. Check this out. Of course, I found something near and dear to my heart. Kodak. They're still around. I need to read up on what exactly they're doing. They were the big film people, right? They made film, and I was a photographer. That was my degree. Since I went to school before the internet. Shh, don't tell anybody that. All right, Kodak. For those of you who's been around for a while and knows something about this. Remember using film and cameras. We recognize them, even still to this day. This red that they use for the word Kodak, look at the font. Kodak. The gold and the black. Now, black, a lot of times, black, gray, and white can be thrown into any design. Those are very neutral. They can be thrown into anything. But for Kodak, black was a selected color. And if you can think back to a package of film, you saw the Kodak red with obviously the gold box. Everybody recognized that box. And then black print on it. That was one of their selected colors. And then they actually did add these stripes here. I'm not sure why. I think that might have come about in the 60s or 70s. Not really a fan of it, but it does add some more color. So those are also part of their branding. Even after all these years, you still recognize that. So I think that's pretty sweet. And I love Kodak. All right. Same thing that I just said, except one extra line here. Come up with a few versions, as I mentioned, and that's it. Stick with them. Do not do yet another version in some situation where you feel like you want to change it up. Don't do it, because that messes with your branding. Part of branding is consistency and repetition. All right. I know Kodak because I've seen the same logo and the same gold box and the same black writing. It's because I see it over and over and over again, that repetition. So don't keep readjusting your logo just for this situation or that. That's why you come up with those different options and then stick with those options. Then also get a full color palette. So your logo, like Kodak, is even really just one color. The word Kodak is the actual logo. It's one color. And I see a lot of people, they use one color, maybe in different shades, very monochromatic. Maybe they put some black or white in there. So logos tend to be monochromatic. But that's why you need to get a color palette to go with it. You need some other options, especially for the web. Unless you want everything monochromatic, except for black, white, and gray, you need to have a palette of colors that are going to work well, especially for making things like your Facebook banner, your Twitter banner, and your website. so that you can introduce some other colors to give it interest, and it still goes with your logo colors. All right, so Johnson & Johnson, they had like 5, probably more websites. Every time I looked, I kept coming up with a different website. Some of these larger corporations, you know, they have tons of websites. Look at this little girl. Doesn't she look like from the Grinch movie with Jim Carrey with the little hair ponytail thing? Anyway, look, an inverted logo. White text on a red background. Red is their color. But they've been around for at least 100 years. Look, the font we recognize, and they have the little and sign. I mean, this is them. And I think that normally, if you see this printed anywhere, it's red. The Johnson & Johnson is actually in red, printed on white. But on the web page, they inverted it. They introduced another color. Look at this blue. And actually, this text here is a different color than that. It's almost a little combination of this green and this blue. So this was all done with some purpose. It's not lovely. I wouldn't say this was lovely. I'm kind of surprised, actually, but you get the idea. Logo, colors, inverted, so they have different versions of their logo. Here's their Facebook. J&J, they just put it down to J&J. It's the same font. We still recognize it. It's the same red. Of course, it says Johnson & Johnson right here, but right here, you're going to recognize that. And here's their tagline: "For all you love." I'm thinking that might be the same font as this. I'm not sure. And it's a different photo here. That's okay. They mention themselves here as medical and health. They do all kinds of products. But this is part of their branding, eliciting a feel. But the consistency from the website to here is really the color, the font. It's not Johnson & Johnson, but it's J&J. We know who it is. They've added their tagline. That tagline is on a lot of other things as well. I just happened to pick a page that it wasn't on. One other thing, look at this. You know what this is? It's called I call it a favicon. Some people call it a favicon or a favicon. Notice this just a little screen capture here of the tab in my browser when I'm on the Johnson & Johnson family website. And sometimes you see these little logos. Look what it says, J&J. 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 That's pretty cool. But I know who it is. It's J&J. I mean, these are tiny, teeny weeny things. You can't do a whole lot with them. This little and wouldn't even show up on there. That's probably why they used the N. But it's still consistent. It's another little thing. It's everywhere. It permeates everything they do. So considerations for your branding. We talked about your logo. And now I'm trying to think I got to go backward. Yeah, we just basically went through your logo and your color palette and the consistency that you need to have throughout all media. And one of those things that's part of your branding is the tagline, which is a pithy, good word, right? A pithy phrase that summarizes your brand. Keep it short, and it may not even necessarily be a complete sentence. For all you love. Not a complete sentence, it's short. It's the font gives a certain feeling. It's soft, it's kind of lovey feeling, it's red, it's warm. For all you love. And of course, with this picture, all the more, right? So a tagline is something that is part of your branding. It's not necessarily part of your logo. In fact, I wouldn't make it part of your logo, but it may get positioned with your logo. Again, short and it's got to be wordsmithed. It has to exactly evoke that emotion and be true to your brand that you want people to know. Here's some tagline examples. 7-Up is the Uncola. The Uncola. That's it. American Airlines. Something special in the air. Right? It's a good one. I like Apple, even though it's grammatically wrong. Think different. Should be differently. But it's simple. Think different. Nike, just do it. Hey, I was saying just do it way before Nike snatched it. Of course, so are a lot of people. That's probably why it does so well, because people say just do it. We know what that means. These are great taglines. They're not full sentences, but they definitely evoke a feeling, an emotion, and a feeling of action. Look at it. Just do it. I mean, get up and go, right? Apple, think different. They certainly do. Slogans are a little different than taglines. They're actually more specific to a product or a specific product campaign, and are probably too much for a voiceover. I do have some voiceovers that I've worked with that have both a tagline and a slogan. And I think it's just a little confusing because you are just one person. You're not this large corporation who's going to be doing different brands of stuff and different marketing campaigns, although different marketing campaigns is not a bad idea. I wouldn't bother with the slogan necessarily if you're just starting out. I just think it's a little confusing. You want people to remember you, and if you give them a tagline and a slogan, it's a little confusing. You're not as big as Coca-Cola. You can't afford to do that yet. So, for instance, the tagline for Disney is the happiest place on earth. That's their tagline. But they have slogans where dreams come true. It's remember the song, Where Dreams Come True? I know I'm not a singer. Plus, my voice is funky. How about I'm going to Disneyland? What happens at the end of the Super Bowl? What are you going to do now? I'm going to Disneyland, right? I remember that. Everybody remembers that. Or Where the Magic Began. They have a bunch of them. But their real tagline is the happiest place on earth. That's really what you guys need to focus on, your tagline. Be consistent. I think I mentioned this. Be consistent across all media with your branding. And right now, mostly we're talking about your logo, but everything, your colors, your fonts, your tagline, the feel, everything across print, your website, your social media, your email. Think about your email signature. Anything that you give away, maybe even how you answer the phone, how you speak to people. I mean, it can permeate into every aspect of your business, and it really should. It should. That's how people are going to remember it. You got to just use it over and over. Be consistent. Don't change it up because that confuses people. That's why I said get a few logos, a few versions of your logo, not a few logos, a few versions of it. Use those and only those. Don't mess with it. Be consistent. And so enter style guides. Style guides are where you basically keep the rules of your branding. It's your manual. Sets rules for how your logo, colors, and business name are presented in all situations. It documents acceptable logo variations as well as unacceptable logo variations. Does this seem like overkill to you? Maybe. Do it anyway. It's really good to have it written down. It's gonna hold you accountable. It's gonna stop you from wanting to just tweak it a little bit for a certain situation. Don't do it. In your style guide, you'll list your color values. So you come up with your main color, it might be in your logo. You may have more than one color in your logo. That happens. In your color palette, there are numbers that go with those colors, and you get that from your graphic designer. So you're going to have those specific color values so that your color, if you pick a certain shade of blue, it's going to be that certain shade of blue no matter what. No matter where it's used, if it's in Facebook, it's on your website, it's on your letterhead, anywhere. And it specifies how your company name is used in text. Like, should it always have the Inc? Like if you're incorporated, should it always be comma Inc after the name? Don't ever shorten the name in text, those kind of things. I work with an organization called Cure Network. I call them the Cure Network, but they're really Cure Network. And Cure is actually an acronym um, that's actually really complicated for me to remember. Collaborative something underserved. I see. I can't even remember because it's and so they shorten it to Cure. Cure, I remember. Cure Network, because they do medical work for people who can't afford it. So that makes sense, right? Cure. But sometimes people will just say Cure. It's easy to just start calling them Cure instead of Cure Network. So they said, no, in our website, everywhere we are mentioned as a business, as an organization, don't just say Cure, say Cure Network. That way, there's that repetition. People get to know that name, Cure Network. So those are the rules you set up. You may also even set your mission, vision, and value statements there. Not a bad idea to put them there. And even your 15 and 30-second elevator pitches. Do you have those? You should. Write down, come up with, in 15 seconds, right? You have to be pretty crafty with your words. It's literally an elevator ride, 15 seconds. Or if you're going to the top of the Sears Tower, it's 30 seconds. But you need your quickie. Somebody says, what do you do? Quickie, 15 seconds. Everything you do, think about your branding while you're writing this. Write it down. Get your 30-second one. So it expounds on the 15-second ones. You got more time. Write them down. Make them exactly the words you want them to be and memorize them to the point that you don't sound like you're reciting them when you answer the question, what do you do? You want to be able to just say it and don't just rattle it off. And it's not easy. It takes a long time. Can't tell you mine offhand. I have them written down. I'm not fully practiced. By the way, you guys, I'm working on all this stuff myself. I'm doing all of this. All of this is happening here in voiceover web design, which is actually Cervaca Creative Services. So come up with these things. And yes, though you are a solopreneur, you're a single person in your own business, and you may be part-time at this point, you may be starting out. This is still super helpful to document and keep yourself accountable to your brand. It keeps you in alignment with it. You think it'll be easy to be in alignment with it, but if you haven't documented it, it's not. Believe me. So in summary, branding defines you, it describes you, and it is what sets you apart. So it's important, right? Branding is the result of proactively pursuing feelings and memory. So you are purposefully evoking feelings and setting up memory of your brand. And it's the feelings and the memory you want them to have. I want to go get a donut now. I really do. I might go. There's one down the road. You decide how you want to be perceived, and then you make it happen. Take charge. Don't just let people perceive you. I mean, that's going to happen anyway, but as much as you can, make it happen the way you want it to happen. Define your branding. Actually create a style guide to hold you accountable. Be consistent. I don't think I could say that enough. Consistent across all media. Internet, print, email, etc., etc., etc. Everything. Consistency is key. All righty. Let's stop sharing here. All right. Ooh, what's going on here? So I'm gonna take a look over in the chat. If you guys, um okay, people had to reconnect. I'm very sorry about that. If you have any questions or comments, please, go ahead and put them in the chat box. I'd be happy to answer them. While you got me here, we're just under an hour right now, so I would be happy to have conversation, if you have something specific to your business. I know this stuff is hard. I just know that a lot of voiceovers, especially starting out, they don't visualize themselves as a business. They don't think of themselves as a brand. You don't call yourself a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or a business owner, but you are. You're all those things. You are the CEO of your company. Just start thinking that way. Start setting aside, marketing budgets. You need a budget. You need an equipment budget, right? You need a coaching budget. You need a marketing budget. So hooking up with a branding professional could be one of the best ways you spend your money, even if you don't have much. It can get you on the road to being a known brand, a known commodity. And you put that together with professional website and your Facebook banners all looking professional and everything and all consistent across the board, you're going to get known. You're going to get known out there and people will remember you. And hopefully you've been honest through the whole thing so that what you actually do deliver to a client is what you said you would deliver. It's, the branding is also, how honest are you and how professional are you and all of that stuff. And then make sure you actually be that thing. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, so I guess I've covered it all. Again, this will show up in YouTube pretty much. Well, it's not immediate because it has to do a little bit of generation, but in 5 minutes or so, it'll be in YouTube on my YouTube channel, which is C Sirvatka, CSIRVATKA. And all my other videos are there as well if you want to take a listen. And if you have questions down the road, feel free to either email me or make a comment in the chat on the YouTube page, and I will respond to that. So I hope this was helpful. I know this was a little more intangible. Usually I tend to like demonstrate things and then kind of go off and do something a little more soft, but this is so important for your business. It's intangible and yet so important. So give it a consideration. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic weekend and I will talk to you soon. All righty.